Right. Hopefully it's streaming. Um, from now on, I'm going to be doing these streams every day instead of um, actually making videos just because it takes less time and it's easier for me to do. But also, I think it's going to be more fun if I can actually talk to you guys in person sometimes, um, or more directly. So, just want to check to make sure everything's working real quick. Should be. I think the audio's working. Yes, it is. All right. So today, as you can see from the title should be correct. Yes. Easy times make weak men, and why men are so weak today. This is, I think, something that needs to be talked about more, and I have some points that will kind of help us talk about this more because it's important to not only understand that men are weak today in general, but why men are weak today. That's incredibly important. And so we'll just get it started off with fashion. And if you walk around today and you look at men, let's say between 18 and 20, maybe even 30 years old, you will see that a lot of them dress the same. I have a girlfriend in college, and so I get a good look at this, at like men in right in the middle of that group from 18 to 30, or almost right in the middle, and they dress like boys. And I think one tip for men, especially younger men, don't wear, do not wear sweatpants in public unless you're going to the gym. Don't wear sweatpants in public unless you're going to the gym. Don't wear pajama pants in public, ever, ever. Don't wear super oversized shirts. Don't go with modern trends, by the way. That's a big one. Everybody wants to go with the trends. And that is the absolute worst thing to do because what are the trendy things to wear nowadays for men? It's wear sneakers with sweatpants and a t-shirt, then a sweater or a sweatshirt, and then a flannel on top of that. That is, and of course a chain. You have to have a chain. That's the 18 to 25-year-old male's everyday outfit. It's like whatever was on the floor that day, their dirty clothes from yesterday, they just woke up and decided, I'll put this back on and we're all good to go. That's the modern that's the modern idea of what men should wear. And a lot of women, and I think this is just a big test from women. A lot of women say they're attracted to that. They say they're attracted to guys wearing a hoodie with a flannel on top of it, with sweatpants and sneakers on. But I think that's just a big test because what do women do? They test men all the time. And I think this is just a mass test, especially with social media now. I think it's just a mass test, and men have failed. Men have failed that test of dressing ridiculously. Absolutely ridiculously. It's insane. So, another tip I would give to men, especially young men, is whenever you're going to wear something, think to yourself, do I think I should wear this in public? Does this represent me in the way I want to be seen by other people? I mean, for me, I was like wearing, if I wear a t shirt, I like wearing a good fitting t shirt, and I always tuck it in. Always. And I think it looks cleaner, looks better, more presentable. And of course, that is not what people expect. I was around my cousin about almost this time last year, and he was saying to me that if I went to his high school everyone would make fun of me because of the way I dress, which I think is ridiculous because, I mean, even right now, I'm just wearing a t-shirt, jeans, and the t-shirt is tucked in, and I think that looks good. And everyone at his school would be wearing shorts or sweatpants, an oversized shirt, sometimes like a basketball jersey or football jersey or hockey jersey, and the chain, and that's called fashion, and that's what's popular. So basically, don't dress like you're a little boy. That's the number one rule. So fashion's number one, and then number two is interacting with women. How men interact with women nowadays, and that's very important. And I just talked about how men have failed the mass test of men's fashion. And I don't think you have to go around wearing a three-piece suit all the time. Absolutely not. I think you just have to look presentable, which is not that difficult. But when boys have no role models and have no idea how to dress, they're just going to go with what women say, or how women say they should dress. And with how messed up women are now because of men, it's just creating a bad loop, a bad cycle of men making bad decisions, then women testing men and also making bad decisions at the same time, men failing those tests and making more bad decisions, and it's just a big cycle, big loop. It's really bad. So, I also, because my girlfriend is in college, I get a good look of how men interact with women as well. And a lot of women between the ages, especially between the ages of 16 and 25 now, sometimes 30, are very, not even masculine, but I don't even know how to describe it. They are incredibly, they're trying to replicate masculinity because they've been told to do that. They've been told that not only are you as good as a man, but you're better than men. And that for some reason they should do exactly what men do because they can do it better. So when I'm around my girlfriend with these other women, they all talk like men, which is very strange. Like their voices will get deeper, which they aren't like that when they're around each other, but as soon as they get around each other, their voices get deeper, which is very strange. Their voices get deeper and they start talking about, um, not my girlfriend's friends, but other women she happens to be around will start talking about things like it's locker room talk, is what it is. And the things my girlfriend says to me that these women say to each other or talk about with each other is insane, very vulgar, and mainly, just to summarize it, they talk about being with one guy for a month and not actually being in a relationship with him, but having sex with him for a month, and then the next month it's someone else because it's just fun, and they're trying to act like, well, they're just being college boys is what they're trying to replicate, really. So, and that would not happen if college age males actually acted like men. If they started dressing properly, started acting properly, stopped allowing themselves to chase these very promiscuous women who are disgusting, actually. Like when a woman has been with 10 men and she's proud of it, she's proud of it, and then she continues to keep on doing that, and all her friends do it, that's disgusting. But those men chase them. That's the problem. That's where the men go wrong. And because men are allowing this very promiscuous activities to continue, and these women to act like men, to act not masculine, but like trying to be masculine, which they do a terrible job at. By allowing that to continue, they're screwing themselves. Because what men are doing is they're thinking in the moment. These guys are thinking in the moment. They're saying, well, if I could just, if I could just be friends with her, and then, when we talk for a little while, and then I flirt with her more, then maybe she'll like me, maybe she'll talk to me, maybe she'll sleep with me eventually, and um, maybe something will work. And they continue to chase these girls over and over again, and they have no purpose. I'm convinced by now, especially whenever I go to visit my girlfriend, that these guys don't even go to college to get a degree. It's just extended childhood to get laid. Get laid, do drugs, and drink alcohol. That's exactly why they go to college. It's not for the future because they don't think about the future at all. If they thought about the future, they would get themselves together, stop dressing like losers, stop acting like losers, stop chasing women who should never be chased, stop allowing themselves to stay in this constant in between state. And sometimes, by in between state, I mean like between doing the right thing and doing the wrong thing. Wrong thing. Sometimes they do the wrong thing. They do the absolute worst thing. And that's what they do most of the time, actually. But they're allowing themselves to stay in this limbo where they don't do anything with their lives. And in 40 years, they're going to go, when they're on the golf course with their buddies, they're going to go, man, I, I loved being in college. That was the best time of our lives. They're going to talk about the championship football games and drinking with their buddies and all these girls they slept with 40 years from now, because that's all they're going to have. That's all they're going to have. Now, what can you do to prevent that within your son, within a friend, within you? First of all, I think Jordan Peterson 3 years ago or 4 years ago was absolutely correct in saying to get your room in order, to focus on what you can do personally to improve yourself, to make yourself the best version of you as you can before you decide to judge the world. And that's very difficult, very very difficult. But dress better, put your room in order or house in order, apartment in order, and this is something my dad said to me before. He said, what you have to do is you have to take someone, like, let's say, a movie character. And for me, the movie characters I would pick would be like Maximus from Gladiator, or Leonidas from 300, or Leonidas from Actual History, or Edmond Dantes from The Count of Monte Cristo, and many other people. But you take one of those figures from history or from a movie that you would like to emulate, and you start acting like them. And every time you do something, you have to go, would Edmond Dantes do this? Or would Maximus do this? And you have to think about that. And you have to keep that in your mind all the time. And then eventually, when you do that over and over again, you can become the person you want to be. And it's not necessarily that you're copying them and you're just trying to become Maximus Decimus Meridius or Edmond Dantes. You're trying to become someone you believe is admirable, honorable, noble, and this is the easiest way to do it, is through an example. Now, I think that's also the movie character example is a great example of how we don't have very many men don't have very many figures to look up to today, because unless you have a very good father, which I do, who I look up to, I also think it's good to look up to other people, other men than your father. But where are those men? They're not around. They're not around. So the next best thing is figures from history and movie characters. That's what it's good to choose. So we have interacting with women, which another time we can go into that a little more. Now we have the education system, and I have another channel in which I talk about the education system a lot. And I used to have a channel that had almost 6,000 subscribers where I talked about all of the politics, all of the craziness within not just public schools, but in private schools as well. It's insane. So much politics, LGBTQ stuff, the trans stuff is insane now. A lot of race based stuff being taught to kids. And the channel is called Maxim Smith if you guys want to subscribe to it, because if you're a parent, if you want to be a parent, you should check out those videos and see exactly why you should not put your kid in the education system. It's terrible. But what the education system does for boys, it does a couple things. First of all, sitting for 7 hours in a classroom all day, that's terrible. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Why would you do that to kids? Why would you do that to boys? We're meant to go outside. We're meant to do things, actual things with our hands, like actually teach us something. But instead, we're supposed to sit in a classroom all day, and if you're a little antsy, if your child's a little antsy, you should put them on some drugs. Put them on Ritalin. I think that's the drug, Ritalin. I believe it is. Yeah, put them on Ritalin. Because they have ADHD, they just move around a little too much in class, they can't focus. It's ridiculous. So that's the first thing they do. Putting on masks. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I've been eating a lot and going to the gym quite a lot recently, so I appreciate it. It's always great when people notice. Um, that's the first thing schools do. Another thing, which I don't think many people talk about, is history class or social studies, whatever your schools call it. But the important thing with history is that boys have to learn true history. And when I was in school, middle school, for example, is the last time I was actually in an actual school in person. I saw that a lot of what we were being taught is completely untrue. And the only reason I knew that was because I had a father who also have a father who wants to understand real history, and I also had a desire to actually read history. And one of the things they teach that is completely incorrect is the Civil War. Not about slavery, not about any of that, not about racism. That's just one of the things. There's so many different things to go over. It's insane. But when you say to boys, every great man in history, or at least every man you thought was great in history, is actually a complete scumbag, terrible, racist, misogynist, piece of crap, you should not look up to him. They have no one to look up to. No one. And again, it creates this cycle where a lot of the boys, well, most boys, most men, or not men, but most guys and boys, they tend to do what they think will get them attention from women. So if the women are doing well in a class, and the women believe that the great men of the past were racist, misogynistic, homophobic, all that stuff, then they will go, yeah, 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 they probably were. They probably were. And this, again, just creates that insane cycle, which can only be broken by strong men. So, that's the education system. Another thing is lack of family. Nowadays, I've really noticed that most families are just people living together. It's just a group of people living together, all of different ages. That's what it is. There's no true connection. There's nothing to look up to. And because there's so many weak men, the chances of your father being weak or someone else's father that you're close to being weak is incredibly high. So they don't have a father to look up to. They don't have a true family connection either. And that's why I think, um, thank you, Logan. I appreciate it. That's why I think with your family, you should create a family coat of arms. And you should add a family crest to it as well. And have someone design that too. But pick out the colors. The colors have different meanings. There's different symbols. Um, like red means valor, and a few other things. Blue means loyalty, and like for example, lion means courage. A book means knowledge. A torch means truth, intelligence, light. There's many different symbols, many different meanings to the colors and everything. But that's incredibly important because when you create that and when you have a family motto, you're saying, we have this thing, we have something to look up to, and now my son will have something to go to aspire to look up to and aspire to be. And we have a family crest, family coat of arms, and on the bottom it says, I actually have it right here on my notepad. It has courage, truth, and integrity at the bottom of it. And at the top it says, now for the future. And that has two meanings. It means, like, now it's time for the future. We're going towards the future. But it also means, do it now for the future. Which is saying not to go with instant gratification. And that's something also important to teach boys, is that if you put in work now towards something, even if it's a little bit more difficult, it will be so much better off in the long run to put in a tiny bit more effort now. At very least, a tiny bit more effort. And then we also have lions and an owl, a book, a torch, and a knight's helmet on there as well. And our colors are white, gold, and red. So I think that's incredibly important. And with that family coat of arms, it's also good to create a family contract. And to give you like a small summary of what we have on our family contract, it's basically listing out our morals, what we believe, and then signing it, saying, I agree to do these things, I agree to act this way. And it's expanding the family motto to be more specific and direct so you can show people this is what we believe, this is how we conduct ourselves. And I think that's incredibly important for men because it gives them a sense of direction in a world that now has no direction for young men and boys. The next thing, and we just have two more things to go over, but this one is how so many boys are trying to find mentors. Think about why Andrew Tate blew up. It's because every young boy, young man, is trying to look for someone to look up to. And unfortunately, and it will always be this way because men like women, we do. But you have to be able to make that your second most important thing or third most important thing. And your first most important thing should be knowing what you want to do in life and going after it, or doing everything you can to understand what you want in life and going after it. And not enough boys and young guys do that. Absolutely not enough. So, and there's so many podcasts about guys bringing girls on who are very promiscuous, very low quality women, highly attractive, women, but very low quality women, onto their podcasts who talk about not needing a man. They don't want to be a mother, at least not until basically they're too old to have kids. Pursuing their career because that's the most important thing. Uh, Always putting children aside, viewing children as gross, a burden, disgusting. Believing that they should pursue a career in, let's say, OnlyFans, for example. These types of women onto their podcasts, and they've blown up because, unfortunately, there's a lot of those women nowadays. Less so than we think, because just because one of these podcast episodes gets a million views doesn't mean that there's actually that many of these women out there. There's a lot more than there should be. But also, because it's become more popular to act that way, more everyday normal women are turning to that and going, you know what? I bet if I sold my body on OnlyFans for $5.99, I could probably, you know, live a good life and maybe make a couple $100,000, and then I don't need kids. I just want a dog and die alone because I don't need no man. So a lot of everyday normal women who were previously actually more high quality than these very low quality women are now turning to this. And because of that, people like Andrew Tate have blown up. And because he talks about that sort of thing, talking about pursuing your own path as a man. But he talks way too much about women, I think. Way too much. Just because that's a popular topic, and that's one way he blew up so much, for sure. But he's not that great of a mentor. He's not a great mentor, actually. Absolutely not. Thank you, Old Fast Joe. I appreciate it. Good evening. I'm going to be doing these live streams every day at 5 p.m. Mountain Time now. Just to do these instead because it's much easier to make a 30-minute live stream than it is to make a video, edit it, and put it up. And I get to actually talk to you guys, which is nice. So, young boys have mentors like Andrew Tate. And if you're a father, if you're a brother, you should be the mentor for your son or your younger brother. I just think men are very lost today, that's for sure. And it's crazy. It's crazy how much these guys have blown up like Andrew Tate. Because as soon as you take a step back from it, you realize that half the stuff they say is either to get more views or it's just very strangely centered on trying to get more women, which is not the most important thing in life, especially for a man. And then the last thing, which goes along with declining birth rates in America and around the world actually, is declining testosterone levels in men. I think there was some article from a study that came out, and I'm sure all you guys have heard about it, but how the average man today has the same amount of testosterone as a 60-year-old man or most 60-year-old men from the 1970s or 80s, I think it was. Something like that. That's crazy. And I think it wasn't just the average man, it was like the average 20 or 30-year-old man, too. I think it was more specific. That's terrible. And a lot of that is because of all of the estrogenic compounds in foods. Lots of soy. Lots of soy. That's just one thing, but also when you have the mentality that being masculine is wrong, it's like a placebo effect. I mean, it's been shown how big of an effect believing something has on our minds and our bodies, our entire bodies, because there's been people who have gotten so much better after a doctor saying that they had given them some certain drug that will cure their cancer. And then all all the tumors disappear and they're fine. So I think that's another thing, and my dad mentioned that a couple months ago. How when he was doing his podcast, he was talking about how he thinks just the idea that are in people's heads about masculinity being wrong is also making it so that men are less masculine. Not just acting less masculine, but also being physically less masculine. I have two boys, 14 and 12. We listen to some of your shows together. They like the quotes from great men. Well, thank you very much. I need to do more of those for sure. I need to make sure I do them every day. But that's fantastic. That is awesome. That is very awesome. Well, I'm glad you guys enjoy the show. And I'm glad I actually get to start doing these. I'm going to start doing these live streams every day now so I can talk to you guys. Because that is really, really cool. That's exactly what I want to do. Because we need to make sure that these young boys, grow up to be men. So yeah, the declining test levels is terrible, but I definitely think it is a placebo effect thing too, where if you believe something is wrong and you should not be that thing and you should embody the opposite of that, the exact opposite of it, then you are going to physically change. And that's very interesting. So that's about it for today. Um, for anybody who's joined in the past couple minutes, at the beginning of the live stream, I went over fashion, how boys and young men dress today, and how that's terrible. The way they dress is terrible, and how it affects them. I went over interacting with women, how the education affects boys, lack of family, lack of moral compass, trying to find mentors and leaders like Andrew Tate, as well as the declining test levels. But yeah, guys, I think that's it for today. I appreciate you guys for coming in. Like I said, I'm going to be doing these every day, every weekday at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. And hopefully, we can go over a lot more topics like this. We absolutely will. And I also want to eventually get back into making the Great Man, um, the actual Great Man podcast episodes where I talk about great men from the past. Because I also think that's very important to show people this is a great man, this is a summary of his life, and this is what makes him a great man. But it requires a good amount of research and it takes a lot of time. And I've been pretty busy, so eventually I will get around to it. But for now, I think talking about what's wrong with the culture and young men today, and how we can make actual men for the future. I think that's worth talking about. Absolutely worth talking about. But yeah, guys, that's it for today, and